In the summer of 1990, a 4-year-old girl named Lily Marie Cooper disappeared from her home in Millbrook, Pennsylvania, without a trace left behind at all. She didn't vanish in the middle of the night like you'd expect from a kidnapping. She left with family friends, people her parents trusted completely, on what was supposed to be a simple weekend trip to the beach that would end on Sunday evening. But Sunday came and went, and Lily never came home to her family. For 31 years, her parents waited by the phone, hoping for news that never came. Her siblings grew up with an empty chair at the dinner table every single night, and the small town of Millbrook carried a secret that nobody could solve, no matter how hard. They tried to find answers that made sense of what happened that summer day. If you think you know how missing person cases end, think again about this. The town of Millbrook sat in the rolling hills of central Pennsylvania back in 1990. A place where maybe 5,000 people lived their whole lives, knowing everyone's business. Summer evenings smelled like fresh-cut grass and barbecue smoke coming from every backyard. Kids rode bikes without helmets, played until the streetlights came on, and nobody locked their doors. Life moved slow and safe in all the ways that mattered to people here. The Cooper family lived in a white 2-story house on Elm Street near the end. David Cooper worked at the steel mill just outside of town, leaving before sunrise most mornings. His wife Patricia worked part-time at the local library, shelving books and helping kids find stories they'd love while raising their 4 children at home every day. Their youngest was Lily, a tiny 4-year-old with blonde curly hair and bright green eyes. She was quiet, the kind of kid who preferred coloring pictures to running around outside. She carried a stuffed rabbit everywhere she went, a worn pink thing her grandmother made. The Cooper kids were close, always looking out for each other in that way siblings do. Michael was 12, the protective older brother who walked Lily to preschool some mornings. Sarah was 10, always braiding Lily's hair and reading her bedtime stories every night. Jennifer was 8, Lily's constant playmate who shared a bedroom with her upstairs. To anyone who knew them, the Coopers seemed like a normal American family, really. Hard-working, loving, the kind of people you'd wave to from your porch daily. That summer had been hot and sticky, like most Pennsylvania summers get around July. The kids spent their days at the community pool or playing in the sprinkler out back. Lily loved the water, would splash around for hours wearing her little pink swimsuit. On weekends, the whole family would pile into their station wagon and drive to the lake for picnics where David would grill hot dogs and the kids would swim. Life felt simple and predictable in all the best ways you could imagine it. The Hayes family had been friends with the Coopers for about 3 years by then. Frank Hayes worked at the same steel mill as David, same shift, same department. His wife Carol volunteered at the library with Patricia, helping organize the summer reading program. They lived just 2 streets over in a brick ranch house with a neat lawn. They didn't have kids of their own, which nobody really questioned back then, honestly. Some couples just didn't. And that was that. Nobody made it a big deal. Carol had a gentle way with children that made them feel special and noticed, always. She'd bring cookies to the library for the kids, remember their favorite books by name. At neighborhood barbecues, she'd sit on the grass playing games with the little ones. Patricia trusted her completely, even asked her to babysit sometimes when David worked late. Nothing about the Hayes couple seemed off or wrong or concerning to anyone watching. They were just normal neighbors who showed up to block parties and waved every morning. It was on a Thursday afternoon in mid-July when Carol stopped by the Cooper house. She knocked on the screen door smiling, carrying a plate of chocolate chip cookies still warm. Patricia invited her in for iced tea, like she always did when Carol visited. They sat at the kitchen table while Lily colored pictures on the floor nearby. "Frank and I are driving down to Ocean City this weekend," Carol said, casual and easy. Just a quick beach trip to get away from this heat for a few days. She took a sip of tea, then looked at Patricia with a thoughtful expression on her face. We were thinking, maybe Lily would like to come with us for the weekend? Patricia paused, surprised but not alarmed by the suggestion being made to her. Oh, I don't know, she said, glancing at Lily, who was focused on her coloring. She's awfully young to be away from home for that long, you know. Carol smiled, warm and understanding, the way she always did with the kids around town. I completely understand your concern, but it would just be 2 nights, 3 days total. We'd take good care of her, let her play in the sand, maybe get ice cream. You and David could have a quiet weekend for once without the kids underfoot. Patricia thought about it for a minute, weighing the offer in her mind carefully. The older kids were going to their cousin's house upstate for the week already planned. She and David hadn't had time alone together in months, maybe even a year, and Carol had watched Lily before without any problems at all, knew her bedtime routine. Let me talk to David tonight, Patricia finally said, not committing but not saying no either. Carol nodded, finished her tea, and left the cookies on the counter before heading out. That evening, Patricia brought it up to David while they washed dishes together quietly. He was tired from his shift, but he listened as she explained the invitation offered. I don't see why not, he said after thinking it over for a bit. Carol's good with her, and Lily likes her a lot, talks about her all the time. It's just Ocean City, couple hours away, and Frank's a good guy, works hard every day. Patricia still felt a little uncertain, that quiet mother's instinct that something felt off somehow. But she pushed it down, told herself she was being overprotective and silly about nothing. Okay, she said finally, drying her hands on a towel hanging by the sink. I'll call Carol tomorrow and tell her yes. Lily can go with them this weekend. The next morning, Patricia called Carol and confirmed that Lily could join them for the trip. Carol sounded excited, promised to pack everything Lily would need for the beach getaway. We'll leave Friday morning around 9 and be back Sunday evening by dinner time. I'll take good care of her. Don't you worry one bit about anything at all. Patricia thanked her, hung up the phone, and tried to ignore the small knot in her stomach that wouldn't quite go away no matter how hard she tried. On Friday morning, Patricia dressed Lily in her favorite pink shorts and a white t-shirt. She packed a small bag with extra clothes, Lily's toothbrush, and the stuffed pink rabbit. Lily clutched the rabbit tight, excited about going to the beach for the first time. You be good for Mr. Frank and Miss Carol, Patricia said, kneeling down to look Lily in the eyes while holding her small shoulders gently but firm to make sure she listened. Yes, Mommy, Lily said in her soft little voice that always made Patricia's heart melt. Patricia kissed her forehead, smoothed her blonde curls, and walked her out to the driveway. Frank and Carol pulled up in their blue sedan, smiling and waving from the front seats. Carol got out, opened the back door, and helped Lily into her car seat carefully. She buckled her in tight, making sure everything was secure before closing the door gently. We'll call you when we get there, Carol said through the open window to Patricia. And we'll see you Sunday evening, probably around 6 or 7 depending on traffic coming back. Patricia waved as the car backed out of the driveway and rolled down Elm Street. Lily waved from the back window, her little hand pressed against the glass, smiling big. Patricia stood there watching until the car turned the corner and disappeared from her sight. She went back inside, telling herself everything would be fine, that Lily would have a wonderful time and come home with stories about the ocean and seashells collected. But deep down, that knot in her stomach grew tighter and wouldn't let go at all. Saturday came and went with no phone call from Carol like she'd promised to make. Patricia tried not to worry too much, told herself maybe they were busy at the beach. Sunday morning arrived, still no call, and Patricia started feeling uneasy rising up inside her. By Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, there was still no sign of the Hayes car. Patricia called their house, but nobody answered the phone, ringing and ringing on the other end. By 7, she was pacing the kitchen floor, checking the window every few minutes for headlights. At 8 o'clock, David called Frank's brother who lived across town to see if he'd heard from them, but the brother said he hadn't talked to Frank in over a week. By 9 o'clock that night, Patricia was in full panic mode, her hands shaking badly. "Something's wrong," she said to David, her voice breaking with fear she couldn't hide anymore. "They should have been back hours ago, and Carol promised to call me yesterday. Something's happened. I know it. I can feel it inside me, David. Please do something." David tried to stay calm for her sake, but his own worry was building fast. He called the police station in Millbrook, explained the situation to the officer who answered. The officer took down the information, said he'd send someone over to check things out. Within 30 minutes, Officer Tom Bradley showed up at their front door, looking serious. "Mr. and Mrs. Cooper," he said, stepping inside when David opened the door wide for him. "Tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave out any details, no matter how small." Patricia walked him through the whole story, from Carol's visit on Thursday to the departure, on Friday morning to the missing phone call, to the fact that they were now 3 hours late with no explanation or contact at all from either of them. Officer Bradley wrote everything down in his notebook, asked for descriptions of the Hayes couple. And their car, asked if Patricia had the license plate number written down anywhere. She hadn't thought to write it down because why would she need it? "We'll check their house first," Bradley said, closing his notebook and heading for the door. "See if maybe they came back and just forgot to call you in all the excitement of getting home tired from the drive. It happens sometimes with people traveling." But when officers arrived at the Hayes house on Maple Street, 2 blocks over, the house was dark, the driveway empty, no car parked anywhere near the property. They knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, even walked around back to check. Nobody answered, no lights turned on, no sign of anyone being home at all. Neighbors said they hadn't seen Frank or Carol since Thursday evening before they'd left for their trip. By midnight, the Millbrook Police Department had officially filed a missing child report for Lily Cooper. Detective James Crawford, a veteran cop with 20 years on the force, was called in. He arrived at the Cooper house just after 1 in the morning, finding Patricia sitting on the couch crying while David paced the living room, unable to sit still. "We're going to find her," Crawford said, firm but gentle, sitting down across from them. "But I need you to tell me everything you know about Frank and Carol Hayes." For the next 2 hours, Patricia and David answered every question Crawford asked them carefully. Where did the Hayes work? How long? Had they known them? Had they ever? Mentioned family in other states, talked about moving away, acted strange or different lately? The answers painted a picture of a normal couple, maybe a little quiet but friendly. Nothing that raised any red flags to anyone who knew them around town at all. Our community of families with missing loved ones knows that the first 24 hours are critical, that every minute counts when a child disappears without a trace like this one did. Crawford organized search teams immediately, sent officers to Ocean City to check hotels and motels. He contacted the Maryland State Police, gave them descriptions of the Hayes and Lily, too. He put out an alert to every police department between Millbrook and the Atlantic coast. By dawn on Monday morning, the story had spread through Millbrook like wildfire, burning fast. Neighbors gathered on the Coopers' front lawn, bringing food, offering to help search anywhere. The local newspaper ran Lily's photo on the front page with the headline, "4-year-old missing." If you've ever felt that sinking dread when someone you love just vanishes completely, you understand the terror the Cooper family lived through that first night without answers coming. Patricia couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just sat by the phone waiting for it to ring. David drove around town for hours looking for the blue sedan, even though he knew. It was pointless. They were long gone by now, but he couldn't just sit still. Michael, Sarah, and Jennifer came home from their cousin's house Monday morning, confused and scared. "Where's Lily?" Jennifer kept asking, her voice small and frightened about her little sister gone. "When is she coming back home to us, Mommy? I want her back now." Patricia couldn't answer, could only hold her daughter close and cry silent tears streaming down. Detective Crawford worked without sleep for the first 72 hours straight, following every lead. He contacted the DMV for the Hayes' car registration, put out a nationwide alert. He checked their employment records at the steel mill and the library, looking for clues. What he found started to paint a different picture than anyone in Millbrook expected. Frank Hayes had quit his job at the mill on Wednesday, the day before Carol. Visited Patricia with her beach trip invitation, but he'd told his supervisor he was moving to Florida for a new job opportunity down south that paid better money for his family. Carol had resigned from her library volunteer position 2 weeks earlier, saying she needed to focus on some personal matters at home that required her full attention now. Neither had mentioned any of this to the Coopers or to any other neighbors. At the Hayes house, the landlord let police inside with a key he had. The place was completely empty, not a single piece of furniture left behind at all. Closets were bare, kitchen cabinets cleaned out, even the trash cans were empty and clean. It looked like nobody had lived there for weeks, not like people who'd just left for a weekend beach trip planning to come back on Sunday evening like normal. In the basement, Crawford found a pile of mail that had been left behind. Bills, mostly, some junk mail, nothing that seemed important at first glance, really. But one envelope caught his attention. A letter from a P.O. box in Portland, Oregon. The return address had no name, just the box number listed clearly on the corner. Crawford opened it carefully, found a handwritten note inside that made his blood run cold. "Everything is ready. Come when you can. We're waiting for you here." The handwriting was neat, feminine, but there was no signature at the bottom of the page. Crawford bagged it as evidence, knowing this was the first real clue they'd found. The Hayes hadn't gone to Ocean City for a beach weekend at all, like they'd said. They'd been planning something else entirely for weeks, maybe even months before this moment. And they'd taken Lily Cooper with them when they disappeared into thin air completely. By the end of the first week, the search for Lily Cooper had spread across 3 states with police departments from Pennsylvania to Maryland to Virginia, all looking for her. Flyers with her photo went up in every gas station, rest stop, and grocery store. Along the East Coast, where people might have seen the blue sedan passing through town. Local news stations ran the story every night, showing Lily's bright green eyes and blonde curls, asking anyone with information to call the police hotline set up just for this case. Tips started coming in almost immediately from people who thought they'd seen something somewhere. A waitress in Delaware said she remembered a little blonde girl eating pancakes with an older couple at her diner on Friday evening, but she couldn't be sure it was Lily. A gas station attendant in Virginia thought he'd pumped gas for a blue sedan, with a child in the back seat, but the description was too vague to be helpful. Every lead got checked out thoroughly by Detective Crawford and his growing team of officers. But none of them led anywhere solid, just more dead ends and false hopes raised. The letter from Portland became the focus of the investigation after everything else dried up. Crawford contacted the Portland Police Department, asked them to check the P.O. box address listed clearly. Officers there opened the box with a warrant, found it completely empty inside with nothing. The box had been rented 6 months earlier under a fake name, paid in cash advance. No forwarding address, no contact information, no way to trace who'd been using it regularly. Security cameras at the post office didn't go back far enough to show who'd been picking up mail from that box over the past several months of rental time. It was another dead end, but it confirmed what Crawford already suspected deep down inside. The Hayes had planned this whole thing carefully, maybe for a year or more beforehand. They'd set up false identities, created escape routes, covered their tracks at every single turn. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision made quickly on a whim or impulse. This was calculated, deliberate, and executed with precision that suggested experience doing this kind of thing. Crawford dug deeper into Frank and Carol Hayes' background, requesting records from previous towns they'd lived. What he found made the case even more troubling than before it had been. Frank and Carol Hayes had lived in at least 4 different states over the past 10 years, never staying in one place longer than 2 or 3 years maximum. Their employment history was spotty, with Frank taking odd jobs at factories and warehouses temporarily. Carol had worked as a nanny in 2 different cities, though neither family she'd worked for reported any problems with her performance or behavior around their children at all. But the pattern was clear. They moved frequently, kept a low profile, and never put down roots deep enough that people would remember them clearly after they left town. In one town in Ohio, a missing child report had been filed around the same time the Hayes lived there, but the case went cold quickly with no leads. The child was never found, and the family eventually moved away, broken by grief overwhelming. Crawford requested the file, compared the details to Lily's case, found unsettling similarities between them. The missing Ohio girl had been 4 years old, blonde, taken by a couple that the Kaffor family trusted who said they were going on a short trip out of state for fun. Crawford felt sick reading it, realizing this might not be the first time ever. He contacted the FBI, requested their assistance in investigating Frank and Carol Hayes as potential serial child abductors operating across state lines for years without getting caught before now. Agent Rebecca Martinez was assigned to the case, a specialist in missing and exploited children. She arrived in Millbrook within 48 hours, bringing resources and expertise the small-town department didn't have. Martinez reviewed everything Crawford had gathered, nodded slowly as she read through the files carefully. "This fits a pattern we've seen before," she said, quiet but serious to Crawford listening. "Couples who can't have children of their own, or who lost a child, sometimes they try to fill that void by taking someone else's baby or young child from families. They gain the family's trust first, integrate themselves into the community, then disappear with the child under the guise of something innocent like a trip or a playdate planned ahead." Crawford felt his jaw tighten, hearing this explained so clearly to him now. "So you think they're keeping her somewhere, raising her as their own kid, basically?" Martinez nodded, her expression grim but certain about what she was saying to him. "Most likely, yes. If their goal was to harm her, we would have found evidence by now. The fact that there's no body, no ransom, demand, no contact at all suggests they wanted a child to raise, and they chose Lily because she fit what they were looking for." The investigation expanded to a national level, with the FBI's involvement bringing new resources online. Agents checked adoption records, hospital births, school enrollments across the entire country looking for matches. They searched for any child registered under the names Frank or Carol Hayes, or any variations of those names that might have been used as aliases in different states. They contacted Border Patrol to see if the Hayes had tried to leave the country through Canada or Mexico, but there was no record of them crossing anywhere officially. Back in Millbrook, the Cooper family tried to adjust to a new reality they never imagined they'd have to live with every single day going forward from here. Patricia stopped working at the library, couldn't focus on shelving books when her mind was consumed with thoughts of where Lily might be right now at this very moment. David kept working at the mill, needing the routine and the paycheck to support. The family, but his co-workers said he was quieter now, distant, like part of him died. Michael, Sarah, and Jennifer struggled in school, their grades dropping as they dealt with grief, and fear nobody their age should have to carry on their shoulders so young. Counselors tried to help, but what could anyone really say that would make this better? Their baby sister was gone, taken by people they'd all trusted completely without question ever. The first year passed without any breaks in the case at all coming through anywhere. The FBI kept the investigation active, checking in with the Coopers monthly for updates. Detective Crawford never stopped working it, even when other cases demanded his attention elsewhere. He'd drive past the empty Hayes house sometimes, staring at it like it might give up its secrets if he looked hard enough at the windows and doors. On Lily's 5th birthday, Patricia baked a cake, even though Lily wasn't there to eat it. She put 5 candles on top, lit them, and let them burn down while the family sat around the table in silence that felt heavier than any words could express. "She's out there somewhere," Patricia said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper then. "I know she is. I can feel it. She's alive, and someday she's going to come home to us all." David reached over, squeezed her hand gently, wanting to believe it too despite the odds. Years turned into a decade, and the case grew colder with each passing season changing. The Coopers kept Lily's room exactly how it was the day she left for good. Her stuffed animals lined up on the bed, her clothes still hanging in the closet. The pink rabbit she'd left behind sat on her pillow, worn and faded now. Patricia would sit in there sometimes, talking to the empty room like Lily could hear her, telling her about what her siblings were doing, how much they missed her every single day. Our community knows that cold cases don't mean the families stop searching for answers ever. The pain doesn't fade, the hope doesn't die, it just changes shape over the years. By the time Lily would have been 15, the investigation had slowed to almost nothing. The FBI checked in once a year, asked if anything new had come up lately. Detective Crawford had retired by then, but he'd left detailed notes for whoever took over his cases to review if new information ever surfaced from somewhere unexpected out there. The Hayes had vanished so completely, it was like they'd never existed at all anywhere. No credit card activity, no tax returns filed, no driver's license renewals, nothing in any database. They'd either died, which seemed unlikely for both of them, or they'd assumed new identities, so deep that even federal systems couldn't track them down across the entire country searching. The Cooper kids grew up carrying Lily's absence with them everywhere they went in life. Michael joined the Army after high school, finding purpose in serving and protecting others somehow. Sarah became a social worker, dedicating her life to helping kids in foster care systems. Jennifer went to college for criminal justice, wanting to understand how cases like her sisters could be solved someday when new technology or information became available to investigators. Patricia never stopped believing Lily was alive somewhere out there in the world living. She kept a candle burning in the front window every single night, without fail, ever. Neighbors called it Lily's light, a small beacon of hope that refused to go out. When Lily would have turned 21, Patricia organized a vigil in the town square here. Dozens of people showed up, holding candles, sharing memories of the little girl they'd known. The local news covered it, ran an updated age progression photo showing what Lily might look like now as a young woman grown up somewhere far from home here. The photo showed a beautiful woman with long blonde hair and green eyes, still bright. Patricia stared at it for hours, trying to see her baby in those features. "I wonder if she remembers us," Patricia said to David that night lying in bed. "I wonder if she knows she has a family here who never stopped looking for her." David didn't answer, just pulled her close, both of them crying silent tears in the dark. By 2021, 31 years had passed since that July day when Lily left home. The case file sat in storage at the Millbrook Police Department, thick with reports. And dead ends accumulated over 3 decades of searching without success ever coming through clearly. The Coopers were older now, Patricia's hair gray, David's hands shaking from years at the mill. Michael was married with kids of his own, living in North Carolina, stationed at base. Sarah ran a non-profit in Philadelphia, helping at-risk youth find stable homes and support. Jennifer worked as a detective in Pittsburgh, still hoping she'd crack a case someday. That would bring her sister back home to them all after so long waiting. Then, in May 2021, something happened half a country away that nobody expected at all. A woman named Jessica Martin walked into a passport office in Portland, Oregon to apply. For her first passport ever for a trip she'd been planning for months now. She was 35 years old, worked as a graphic designer, lived a quiet, normal life. She'd been raised by parents she knew as Frank and Carol Martin, who'd homeschooled her, and kept her pretty isolated from other kids growing up in their small house outside town. They'd told her she was born at home, that they didn't trust hospitals or government, records, and that she didn't need official documents to live a good life here. Jessica had accepted this growing up, never questioned it much because she loved her parents. They'd been kind, attentive, maybe a little overprotective, but she'd had a happy childhood. But now she needed a passport for a work trip to Canada coming up soon. And she couldn't apply without a birth certificate to prove her identity and citizenship required. The clerk at the passport office, a woman named Linda Stevens, took Jessica's application and typed her information into the system like she did 100 times every day. But when she searched for Jessica Martin's birth record, nothing came up at all anywhere. She tried different spellings, different dates, different counties in Oregon listed on the forms. Nothing. No record of Jessica Martin being born anywhere in the state at all ever. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Linda said carefully, looking up at Jessica standing there confused now. "But I can't find your birth certificate in our system anywhere at all here. Do you have a physical copy you can bring in instead, maybe to verify?" Jessica frowned, shook her head slowly, feeling uneasy rising up inside her chest now. "No, I've never seen it. My parents always handled that stuff for me growing up." Linda's training kicked in immediately, recognizing red flags she'd been taught to watch for carefully. Missing birth records, isolated upbringing, parents who controlled all documentation. These were signs of something. Wrong, maybe identity theft, maybe something worse than that even she didn't want to think. "Can you give me a few minutes?" Linda asked gently but firm with her. "I need to check something with my supervisor about this before we can move forward." Jessica agreed, sitting down in the waiting area feeling confused and worried both now. Linda walked to the back office, pulled up the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children database on her computer screen, something all passport clerks had access to now. She entered Jessica's approximate age, the physical description standing out front, the fact that she had no birth record anywhere traceable through official systems checked thoroughly already today. The system returned several possible matches from decades ago, across the country listed out clearly. One caught Linda's eye immediately, making her heart skip a beat fast and hard. Lily Marie Cooper, missing from Millbrook, Pennsylvania since July 1990, would be 35 years old. Now, had blonde hair and green eyes matching Jessica perfectly, standing out there waiting. Linda printed the file, walked back out to Jessica with her supervisor following close behind. "Ms. Martin," Linda said softly, sitting down next to her in the waiting area. "I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be honest with me. Have your parents ever mentioned anything about you being adopted or coming from another family?" Jessica's face went pale, her hands gripping the armrests of the chair tight now. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking badly now with fear rising up fast inside. "Why? What's going on here? What did you find about me that I don't know?" Linda showed her the file carefully, the photo of 4-year-old Lily beside the age. Progression image showing what she might look like now as an adult woman grown. Jessica stared at it, her breath catching in her throat, seeing herself staring back clearly. The resemblance was impossible to ignore or deny looking at it right there before her. Jessica sat frozen in the passport office chair, staring at the missing child report. That showed her own face looking back at her from 31 years ago clearly. Her hands trembled as she held the paper, reading the details over and over again. Lily Marie Cooper, age 4, disappeared July 1990, Millbrook, Pennsylvania, last seen with family friends. The words swam in front of her eyes as her brain tried to process it. "This can't be right," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet office now. "My parents they couldn't have. This has to be some kind of mistake here." Linda Stevens, the passport clerk, sat beside her with a gentle expression on her face. "I know this is overwhelming," she said softly, choosing her words carefully and slowly now. "But we need to contact the authorities to verify this information before we can proceed." Jessica nodded, unable to speak, feeling like her entire life was crumbling around her. Within an hour, FBI agents arrived at the passport office to speak with Jessica directly. They were professional but kind, understanding that her world had just been turned completely, upside down in ways she couldn't fully comprehend yet, in this moment sitting here. Agent Sarah Chen led the conversation, asking Jessica questions about her childhood and upbringing. "Where were you born?" Chen asked, her pen poised over a notepad ready to write. "My parents said I was born at home in rural Oregon," Jessica answered slowly, thinking. "They homeschooled me, said they didn't trust the government or public schools with kids. We moved around a lot when I was young, different towns, always staying pretty isolated." Chen nodded, writing everything down as Jessica spoke to her about her past life. "Do you remember anything from before you were about 5 or 6 years old?" Jessica closed her eyes, trying to reach back into those foggy early memories she had. "Pieces, just flashes really. I remember snow, which is weird because Oregon doesn't get that much. I remember a different house, bigger, with stairs and other kids, voices I can't quite place. But my parents said those were just dreams I had, that my memory was confused." Chen exchanged a glance with her partner, both recognizing the signs they'd seen before clearly. "Jessica, I need you to understand that what I'm about to suggest might be difficult, but we need to conduct a DNA test to determine if you are Lily Cooper." Jessica felt tears streaming down her face now, unable to stop them from coming anymore. "What if I am?" she asked, her voice breaking with emotion, overwhelming her completely now. "What if everything I've known my whole life has been a lie from the start?" Chen reached over, placed a gentle hand on Jessica's shoulder in comfort and support. "Then we help you find the truth and reconnect you with your biological family. But first, we need to be certain before we contact anyone about this discovery." Jessica agreed to the DNA test, feeling numb as the agent swabbed her cheek. The sample was sent to the FBI lab with a rush order placed immediately for results. Meanwhile, agents went to the address Jessica provided for her parents' house outside Portland quickly. The small house sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by trees. When agents knocked on the door, a woman in her 70s answered, looking startled. "Carol Martin?" Agent Chen asked, showing her badge clearly to the woman standing there. The woman's face went white, her hand gripping the doorframe for support, suddenly shaking. "What's this about?" she asked, her voice tight with fear she couldn't hide well. "We need to speak with you and your husband about your daughter Jessica," Chen said. Carol's eyes filled with tears immediately, and she stepped back from the door slowly. "He's not here," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, now trembling badly. "Frank passed away 2 years ago from a heart attack that took him fast." Chen and her partner entered the house, sat Carol down at the kitchen table. For the next 3 hours, Carol told them everything that had happened 3 decades ago. She and Frank had lost their only biological daughter to cancer when she was 3. The grief had destroyed them both, made them desperate to fill the void left behind. They'd moved to Millbrook, saw the Cooper family with their 4 children, beautiful and happy. And Carol had fixated on Lily, the youngest, with her blonde curls and bright smile. "We didn't plan it for long," Carol said, crying as she confessed it all out. "Maybe a few months at most. We knew the Coopers trusted us completely without question. Frank quit his job, I stopped volunteering, and we planned our escape route to Oregon. We told them we were taking Lily to the beach, but we drove straight, through to the West Coast instead, changed our names, started over completely new here." Chen listened without judgment, just taking notes as Carol continued speaking through tears now. "We loved her," Carol insisted, her voice desperate for them to understand that part. "We raised her well, gave her everything she needed, homeschooled her so she'd be safe. We never hurt her, never neglected her. We just wanted to be parents again." Chen's expression remained neutral, though inside she felt anger rising at the selfishness displayed here. "You stole a child from her family," she said firmly, but controlled in her tone. "You let them suffer for 31 years not knowing if their daughter was alive. That's not love, Mrs. Martin. That's kidnapping, and you know it deep down." Carol sobbed harder, nodding, unable to defend herself against the truth being spoken clearly. The DNA results came back within a week, confirming what everyone already suspected by now. Jessica Martin was indeed Lily Marie Cooper, taken from Millbrook, Pennsylvania in July 1990, clearly. The FBI contacted the Cooper family immediately, asking them to come to Philadelphia for a meeting without explaining why yet over the phone to them, without more details. Patricia and David drove up with Jennifer, their hearts pounding with hope and fear. When Agent Chen sat them down and told them the news, Patricia collapsed, sobbing hard. "She's alive," she kept repeating, unable to believe the words she was hearing spoken. "Our baby is alive after all these years waiting and hoping she'd be found?" Chen nodded, smiling gently as she showed them recent photos of Jessica from Oregon. Patricia stared at the images, seeing her daughter's green eyes looking back at her. "She looks like my mother," Patricia whispered, touching the photo with trembling fingers gently now. "She has her grandmother's eyes and smile just like I remember them so clearly." David couldn't speak, just held Patricia close as tears streamed down both their faces. Jennifer sat beside them, her own eyes wet, realizing her baby sister was coming home. The reunion was arranged carefully, with counselors and FBI agents present to help everyone. Jessica flew to Philadelphia, her emotions a mix of fear, confusion, and curiosity overwhelming. She'd spoken to Carol after the confession, confronted her about the lies and deception. Carol had apologized over and over, begging for forgiveness Jessica wasn't ready to give yet. Now Jessica stood outside a conference room, knowing her biological family waited inside for her. Agent Chen walked with her to the door, squeezed her hand gently for support. "Take your time," Chen said softly, opening the door slowly for her to enter when ready. Jessica stepped inside, saw 3 people standing there staring at her with tears already falling. Patricia moved first, walking toward Jessica slowly, like she was afraid she might disappear again. "Lily," she whispered, her voice breaking on the name she hadn't spoken in years out loud. Jessica felt something inside her break open, hearing that name spoken so gently and lovingly. "I don't remember you," she said honestly, tears streaming down her face now too heavily. "But I think I remember your voice from somewhere deep inside me I can't quite reach." Patricia reached out, touched Jessica's face gently, like she was confirming she was real. "You're here," Patricia said, pulling her into a hug that felt both foreign and familiar. "You're really here after all this time waiting for you to come back home?" David joined them, wrapping his arms around both of them, crying openly without shame now. Jennifer stood back, giving them space, but Jessica reached out a hand toward her. "You're my sister?" Jessica asked, and Jennifer nodded, stepping forward to join the embrace tightly. They stood there for a long time, just holding each other. No words needed yet. Over the next several weeks, Jessica learned about the family she'd been taken from years ago. She met Michael and Sarah via video calls, both of them overjoyed to see her. She looked at photo albums showing her as a baby, a toddler, the life she'd lived. Before it was stolen from her by people she'd trusted as her parents growing up. She learned about the search that had consumed Millbrook, the years of waiting and hoping. The candle Patricia had kept burning in the window every single night without fail. "I never stopped believing," Patricia said one evening as they sat together looking at old photos. "Everyone told me to accept that you were gone, but I wouldn't. I knew you were out there somewhere alive, and I was right all along." Jessica squeezed her mother's hand, still getting used to calling her that out loud. "I'm glad you didn't give up on me, even when it seemed impossible to hope." The legal situation with Carol Martin was complicated by time and circumstances surrounding the case. She was arrested and charged with kidnapping and child abduction across state lines clearly. But because Frank was dead, and because Carol was now in her 70s with health problems, the prosecution agreed to a plea deal that avoided a long trial. Carol was sentenced to 5 years in prison, though she'd likely serve less with. Good behavior and her age considered by the judge handling the case proceedings fairly. Our community understands that justice in these cases doesn't always look the way we want. Sometimes it's imperfect, complicated by time, death, and circumstances beyond anyone's control, really. For Jessica, the question of forgiveness toward Carol remained complex and deeply personal to navigate. She'd loved the woman who raised her, even knowing now what Carol had done. But she also felt anger and betrayal for the lies that shaped her entire life. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive her completely," Jessica admitted to a counselor, helping her. "But I also don't want to carry this anger forever inside me eating away. She gave me a childhood, even if it was built on something wrong and stolen. I need to find a way to live with both truths existing together somehow." Jessica decided to keep the name Jessica in her daily life, but legally reclaimed Lily Marie as part of her full identity on official documents moving forward from here. She was both people now, the child taken and the woman raised, 2 lives, merged into one person standing at the intersection of past and present, trying to move. Patricia supported her daughter's decision completely, understanding that identity wasn't something that could be erased. "You're my Lily," Patricia said, hugging her close one afternoon together in her childhood home. "But you're also Jessica, and I love both parts of you equally and completely always." On a warm evening in August 2022, 1 year after the discovery in Portland, Oregon, the Cooper family gathered at their home in Millbrook for a special dinner together. Jessica had flown in from Oregon, where she still lived, and worked doing graphic design. Michael and Sarah came with their families, their children meeting Aunt Lily for the first time and hearing the incredible story of how she came back to them all. The table was full, laughter echoing through the house in ways it hadn't in decades. Patricia looked around at her children, all together finally after 31 years of waiting patiently. "I want to show you something," she said to Jessica, standing up from the table. She led her daughter upstairs to the bedroom that had been kept untouched for years. Jessica stepped inside, saw the stuffed animals, the small dresses, the pink rabbit on the pillow. "This was your room," Patricia said softly, picking up the rabbit and handing it over. Jessica held it close, feeling something deep inside her stir with recognition she couldn't quite name. "I remember this," she whispered, surprised by the certainty she felt holding it now in her hands. "I remember this rabbit. I used to carry it everywhere I went back then." Patricia smiled through tears, knowing that some memories never truly disappear. They just wait. For the right moment to surface again, when the time is finally right for them. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Jessica sat on the front porch, with Patricia beside her in the swing chair, creaking gently back and forth, slowly. "Thank you for never giving up on me," Jessica said quietly into the darkness surrounding. "Thank you for keeping that light burning all those years even when everyone said it was pointless and foolish to keep hoping I'd come back someday, somehow miraculously." Patricia took her daughter's hand, held it tight between both of hers warmly and gently. "A mother never stops looking for her child," she said simply, but with deep conviction. "No matter how many years pass, no matter how impossible it seems, the love doesn't die. And the hope doesn't fade away completely, it just changes shape over time. If this story reminded you that missing doesn't mean gone forever, that families can be reunited even after decades of separation and waiting, then stay with us here watching always. Subscribe to this channel, share this story with someone who needs to believe that miracles can still happen in this world, that DNA and persistence can bring loved ones home. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from right now tonight, because somewhere out there, another family is still searching for answers, still keeping their light burning through darkness surrounding. And our community's support helps keep their hope alive until the moment when science or chance or fate brings their missing loved ones back home where they belong with family forever. Thank you for being here with us tonight, for caring about these stories that remind us all that time may pass, but real love endures, that absence isn't the end. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your light burning bright always.